Hi, welcome back to Space Thoughts. It's been a couple weeks since I've done a video, and a lot of that's because of what's been going on in Ukraine. It's definitely had my attention, as it does the attention of the whole world. Um, the whole thing with Ukraine is basically we've heard this euphemism used before, but I'll use it again. The world changed, and this is what happens in geopolitics. You can be riding along smoothly, and all of a sudden something just pops right out of the air and just upsets the apple cart and changes the direction of geopolitics. And this is the case right here. This invasion definitely is something that sets a new tone for international cooperation and specifically cooperation with the Russian Federation in many endeavors, including outer space, especially considering the sanctions that are being levied against the Russian Federation at this point. One interesting thing that has been come up a couple times is the Roscosmos chief basically came out on two occasions and questioned the validity of or the future of the International Space Station. And in particular, the first time it was a threat to, we're going to walk out and we're just going to let it drop where it may. It's up to you, type of thing. It was kind of a threat, kind of a bombastic threat that is kind of par for the course. But let's take a look at this quick article right here. And this is the latest one in space news from yesterday. Roscosmos had again questions future of ISS while NASA emphasizes cooperation. And here we have the cooperation word, and it's a word that I really loathe because it has a lot of feel-good intentions in it, a lot of feel-good optics in it, but it's basically a political statement as much as a realistic statement. So the whole idea of cooperation in space isn't a new thing. Back during the Cold War, during the Nixon administration, we had the Apollo-Soyuz, where they get together in orbit, where basically, they propose, hey, let's have this show of unity, and we're going to rendezvous an Apollo capsule and a Soyuz capsule in orbit and join up using this module that the U.S. built at its expense, and basically have this exchange of thing, put a coin together and such. And it was a great feel-good thing. Now, it made for some interesting political optics for President Nixon at the time in the U.S., and it made it think like we're all getting along when we really weren't. But on the other hand, from a pragmatic standpoint, that mission actually used up an Apollo capsule that probably could have been used for an additional Skylab mission, and potentially boosted the Skylab up enough to that it might have actually been saved to the point that until the space shuttle came online. But again, the cooperation back then was all about optics as much as far as really having a real tangible, realistic, substantive effect. It was about politics. And again, the world revolves around politics. So we get to the International Space Station, and it's the same thing. After the Soviet Union fell, we decided that maybe it'd be a good idea to get together with the Russian Federation and build the International Space Station. And what happened is we got together, they brought together this massive treaty called the IGA, which is basically the International Space Station Agreement. And after we signed it, we went to the Russians, and the Russian economy was pretty strapped for cash at that point. And so Congress basically allocated money to build this big section called Zara, which contained a lot of the life support and a lot of the propulsion for the space station, for the International Space Station. And it's funny because that it got delayed for some reason, and no work was being done on it. A U.S. congressman came over and looked at it and looked at this module that wasn't finished, and he's saying, "We gave you all this money. Where what are you doing?" Well, long story short, they eventually got it fixed. We started putting the International Space Station together, and then and now we have this space station. Now, I've always been kind of skeptical about the utility of the International Space Station. Granted, people who have science interests say, well, this is a good thing for us because we can perform all these experiments and such, and of course different astronauts from different countries can go up and participate in it. But I always thought of it as just a big political mess, and I think we're finding right now it is a big political mess. And I say that because I think the Russians got more benefit out of it than we did. I mean, we tout the science and the political optics, but the Russians really got got a big cash benefit out of it from space tourism, which NASA was very strongly opposed to, and basically the Progress flights, which they were charging us a bundle for in order to do it. So enter geopolitics 2021 to 2022, and now we're in this situation, especially where we're reconsidering extending the space station to 2030. We have this situation in Ukraine. There's a lot of sanctions against Russian Federation. There's a lot of mistrust of the Russian Federation. It looks like we're going back to the bad old days of the Cold War, and now Roscosmos comes out and levies these bombastic threats and comments about the International Space Station. And I think NASA looks a little bit flat-footed here. I mean, just coming out and emphasizing cooperation. And I really think cooperation is dead. I mean, again, we're touting a political optic as opposed to a pragmatic function. Because right now, I think it's safe to say, even after the Ukraine war is over, however that ends, there's going to be a lot of political animus for a long time. And we're probably talking for a decade or two anyways, because I think right now, Russia in particular, the PRC, the People's Republic of China, they're basically aligning and basically see this as their time to push their worldview. So right now, its big question is, the question is, one, is cooperation even viable here? And two, can we afford to look in the future the way relations are right now to actually hope that cooperation will sustain this until 2028 or 2030? Now, bottom line is cooperation, like I said, is a political optic. But what this really comes down to is national interest. And the formula is, one, is it in my national interest to actually cooperate? And two, is it really practically viable to have this type of program like the ISS to cooperate with the Russians? Now we're seeing a lot of pins falling in the commercial space industry with Russia. When Webb looks like they just lost, they basically don't have anything to launch their satellites on, because they've been pretty much said no to the Soyuz rockets because of some of the restrictions that the Russians were putting on them. And other companies, other entities are relying on them. ESA, for example, was supposed to launch the rover next year, but right now, because of the situation with the Russians, they can't get a certain descent module created that was going to deliver the rover because of that. So that's going to be delayed until they find actually means of bringing the rover down safely on Mars, and more importantly, getting it launched. So this is going to affect Launch Manifest. So again, the whole idea goes back to the future of the International Space Station. Is it really viable? I don't think it is. And I think, again, from the beginning, it was really a big assumption that the Russians would continue to move along in a more Western type of view, and basically to a point where we could actually hold something like this together and make it work. I mean, bottom line is, the ISS's days are numbered anyways. I mean, like I said, there is a proposal to extend it to 2030, but right now I think there's a lot of serious talk going on, at the higher levels about, when this is going to be ditched. And of course, when it does ditch, the Russians and the US are going to have to cooperate in order to do it in a manner that isn't going to cause a mess on Earth as well. This has got to go into the satellite graveyard in the Pacific. Of course, so there are the other members of the ISS who have their own modules or their own interests on board that are going to have to be consulted as well. So it's the Russian, in my opinion, the ISS has always been a big political hot mess, and right now it's going to be even a bigger political hot mess, getting this sorted out to actually end it. And I think, I don't think this is a bad thing. I mean, I was on the space show the other night, and a listener asked me a question. Do we really throw away decades of cooperation with the Russians? And basically my answer is, well, you're not throwing anything away. You're just deciding not to move forward with it. And again, you got to be. This is realism here. We got to be realistic. Can we work with the Russians in particular, especially what's going on right now with their geopolitical interests? And the answer is, the answer, in my opinion, is no. And similarly to that is the question of the People's Republic of China. There you see a lot of talk from NGOs and from certain officials, even one former NASA administrator, that we should be cooperating more with the PRC in outer space. Now, I've always been a big opponent of it for multiple reasons, but I think the issue with the Russian Federation and the ISS right now, the problem we're in right now, is a good indicator that, hey, this is a good reason not to cooperate with China in outer space, just because of the political differences, the different worldviews, and because of this thing we call great power competition. So again, that's just a little bit of my opinions on what's going on right now. We are in a dangerous situation. What's going on in Ukraine? Outer space is in play for this. I won't go into detail about some of my thoughts on outer space security right now in this video, but it certainly is in play, and we are in interesting times, to say the least. But understand, this idea of cooperation with the ISS or the Russians and even the PRC, it's dead. It's not going to, it's just moving forward. It's not going to happen, and we got to face some reality and not really sacrifice reality for a political optic of cooperation. So that's all I have for this one. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll talk to you next time.